Welcome. We are the Ministry of the Real Truth. There's so much information out there on different subjects. You can believe it, you can take it with a grain of salt, or you can totally debunk it, state it's a hoax, fairy tale, etc. There's so much information available about the origins of man, being created by alien confederation, conglomeration, etc., etc. One reads all about it, watches the videos, the documentaries, etc., comes to their own conclusions, their own opinion, views, they express them. Oh, it's all true, no, it's all fake, no, it's all a hoax, it's a big scam, it's a whole lot of rubbish, etc., etc. Trying to convince others that it's true or it's false or a great big lie or hoax. But what if this information, which is being pushed as established fact, that the evidence proves itself evident, that it's all true, there's people that are bringing it to everyone's attention, are actually or really what they claim to be. They're not paid shills, paid to spread disinformation, misinformation across the internet to the world, etc., to all of us. We actually got interested in this because we found a quote, history is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon. So we tried to find out who actually said that, okay, because there was no name attached to it. So we went to a forum and we found that it was supposedly Napoleon, but it was attributed to him falsely when it was somebody else who lived centuries before him, and so forth. And then we came across this above Majestic because we fell asleep and we were watching Tubi, and the movies continue. You watch one and you fall asleep, and then they keep playing right, all night long. And we woke up and came across this movie called Above Majestic, which was very, very interesting, about extraterrestrials, human race being created by them, and so forth. The usual whole alien ET claim, right, in this documentary. We found it really, really interesting, but we thought, well, is it true? Again, is it true, or is it all rubbish? Right? Here is a quote from the beginning of this movie. We couldn't play it, unfortunately, bring it to you through YouTube or anything, because we get a copyright strike, and we didn't want that. We don't want a copyright strike record, okay? Try to keep ourselves as clean as possible without those. And we're not part of the partnership program, so you can't really get away with all this sort of stuff. And so on. Okay, the quote here says, "The gateway from intelligent energy to intelligent infinity opens regardless of circumstance on the striking of the hour. Law of one. May the truth protect me in all ways." Rig Veda. It's the old Sanskrit Hindu book. Okay, you may have come across it, you may have read it, you may know it quite well. Yeah, again, we couldn't play the movie to get a copyright strike, but we did one better. Unbelievably, we had this thought, wonder what the transcript, if there's a transcript of it, of the actual movie, and voila, we found it, okay, in book format. So we're going to look at that in a minute. And it talks about the Majestic 12. What the hell is that? So we went and had a look for that. Majestic 12, also known as MJ12. No, it's not some sort of Michael Jackson clone. For short, is a purported organisation that appears in UFO conspiracy theories. The organisation is claimed to be the code name of an alleged secret committee of scientists, military leaders and government officials, formed in 1947 by an executive order by US President Harry S. Truman to facilitate recovery and investigation of alien spacecraft. The concept originated in a series of supposedly leaked secret government documents, first circulated by ufologists in 1984. Upon examination, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, declared the documents to be completely bogus and many ufologists consider them to be an elaborate hoax. Majestic 12 remains popular among some UFO conspiracy theorists, and the concept has appeared in popular culture, including television, film and literature. History. On May 31st, 1987, it was widely reported that British ufologist Timothy Good claimed to be in possession of 1950s era UFO documents. The documents purported to reveal a secret committee of 12, supposedly formed in 1947 by an executive order by US President Harry S. Truman, and explained how the crash of an alien spacecraft at Roswell in July 1947 had been concealed, hidden, covered up, how the recovered alien technology could be exploited, and how the US should engage with extraterrestrial life in the future. According to researchers, ufologist Jamie Shandera had in 1984 received an envelope containing film which, when developed, showed images of 8 pages of documents that appeared to be briefing papers describing Operation Majestic 12. The concept of Majestic 12 emerged during a period in the 1980s when ufologists believed there had been a cover-up of the Roswell UFO incident and speculated some secretive upper tier of the level of the US government was responsible. Shandera and his ufologist colleagues Stanton T. Friedman and Bill Moore say they later received a series of anonymous messages that led them to find what has been called the Cutler/Twining memo. In 1985, while searching declassified files in the National Archives, the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, is an independent federal agency of the United States government which within the executive branch, charged with the preservation and documentation of government and historical records, etc., purporting to be written by the President Eisenhower's assistant Robert Cutler to General Nathan F. Twining, and containing a reference to Majestic 12. The memo is widely held to be a forgery, likely planted as part of a hoax. Historian Robert Goldberg wrote that the ufologists came to believe the story despite the document being obviously planted to bolster the legitimacy of the briefing papers. Claiming to be connected to the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigations, a man named Richard Doty told filmmaker Linda Moulton Howe, American investigative journalist and regional Emmy Award-winning documentary filmmaker, best known for her work as a ufologist and advocate of a variety of conspiracy theories, including her investigation of cattle deaths, mutilation, all that sort of stuff. Linda Moulton Howe that the MJ12 story was true and showed how unspecified documents purported to prove the existence of a small grey humanoid aliens originating from the Zeta Reticuli star system. Latinized from Reticuli is a wide binary star system in the southern constellation of Reticulum. Or is it coming out of their rectum? Just a small joke here. From the southern hemisphere, the pair can be seen with the naked eye as a double star in very dark skies. There it is there. Doty reportedly promised to supply Howe with film footage of UFOs in an interview with an alien being, although no footage ever materialized. Soon, distrust and suspicion led to disagreements within the ufology community over the authenticity of the MJ12 documents, and Moore was accused of taking part in an elaborate hoax, while other ufologists and debunkers, such as Philip K. Klass, were accused of being disinformation agents. American journalist, UFO researcher, known for his skepticism regarding UFOs. In the ufological skeptical communities, Klass inspires polarized appraisals. He has been called the Sherlock Holmes of ufology. Okay, so he was accused of being a disinformation agent along with this person, Moore. Analysis and Klass's investigation of the MJ12 documents found that Robert Cutler was actually out of the country on a date he supposedly wrote the Cutler-Twining memo, and that the Truman signature was a pasted-on photocopy of a genuine signature, including accidental scratch marks from a memo that Truman wrote to Vannevar Bush, which was related to George Bush, or the Bushes, possibly. There he is there. On October 1, 1947. Class dismissed theories that the documents were part of a disinformation campaign as ridiculous, saying they contained numerous flaws that could never fool Soviet or Chinese intelligence. Other discrepancies noted by Class included the use of a distinctive date format that matched one used in Moore's personal letters, and a conversation reported by Brad Sparks in which Moore confided that he was contemplating creating and releasing some hoax top secret documents in hopes that such bogus documents would encourage former military and intelligence officials who knew about the government's alleged UFO cover-up to break their oaths of secrecy. And the FBI began its own investigation of the supported secret documents and quickly formed doubts as to their authenticity and so forth. Okay, so here's some more information on Above Majestic, an insider movie review. As strange as it may seem, Above Majestic aims to unveil nothing but the truth. Let's see if it does. Above Majestic is a documentary film that aims to give us a closer look at the origins, history and conspiracies behind the so-called Majestic 12. This writer's close friend recommended this movie to him, and since he was not familiar with it, he decided to look for its official trailer before adding it to his list of movies to watch this week. We'll put a trailer as an end screen at the end of this video, so you can see that exact trailer if we find it. The trailer already piqued his curiosity, especially when the journalist Jordan Sather said that everything we learned is designed to program our minds away from the truth. Everything we learn, okay, from childhood to full adulthood. Again, Jordan Sather said that everything we learn is designed to program our minds away from the truth. Later that night, this writer watched the full movie and he said it's more than 2 hours of overwhelming information about aliens and Majestic 12. Yeah, that's what we found. The question this writer had in mind while watching is it true that there are aliens in Area 51? No way, right? Breaking it all down, and he decides to be completely honest. Let's see how honest he is. The beginning of Above Majestic was fantastically attention-grabbing. Yes, it was. It is. And he was starting to ask questions, to question the things that he believed in for so many years. He thought it was a very good compilation of pieces of evidence trying to unveil the truth behind UFO Majestic 12. The movie is trying to awaken his or anyone's curiosity, and he was looking forward to more facts about what's going on and out of the world towards the end of the movie. Every piece of information that they are presenting is creating a bubble in this person's mind, and he was waiting for an answer with supporting evidence towards the end of the movie. This film is a red pill that wakes you up to what's really going on in the world, and at some point it is all going to break open. David Wilcock, very famous author, etc. In the latter part of the film, the writer started to think of this as a make-believe documentary because there were points that are hard to take and believe. It was hard for him to think that there were settlements on the moon and Mars from Germany back in 1939. How is that possible? Is the technology back then as advanced as the technology that we have nowadays? In addition to that, we were told that Neil Armstrong is the first person to walk on the moon. So is that well-known fact a lie? If aliens are controlling us, why are they hiding until now? What's their plan? Those were just a few questions that this writer had waiting for further explanation, but sadly it was not discussed in the movie. On the technical part, the background music is way too loud. Yes, that's right. And there are times that you're having a hard time understanding the narrator. Yeah, okay. At first, the writer was watching it using his speaker, but it sounded really bad. He switched on his AirPods and it became better, but still there are parts that he had to repeat to understand it clearly. The choice of music does not complement the emotions that the movie is trying to convey. Essential movie details. By the way, did you know? The movie was based on the alleged 1947 organisation called Majestic 12 that facilitates the recovery and investigation of alien spacecraft. It was directed by Roger Richards, who is also the co-director of the documentary film Cosmic Secret that talks about prophecies in the future of humanity. David Wilcock, Corey Goode and Jordan Sather are the lead roles in this film, who also starred on Cosmic Secret. The intro sequence was created by the director's nephew as part of his high school animation coursework. In the end, Above Majestic has potential, but there's a lot of things that they still need to improve. It could have been better. Now what did that just jumped down by itself. Didn't touch anything. It could have been better if they did more research before finalising the film. To be honest, the writer was not 1000% convinced of their presentation because he had cited lapses with the other evidence. There are times that they are jumping from one subject to another without justifying the connection of each other. They could have invested more time and effort in editing the audio and visual effects to make it more convincing. If you're a fan of this type of documentaries, you might want to consider listening to David Wilcock's podcast on Spotify or elsewhere, and you'll get more details about his beliefs. If this writer were to rate this movie, he would give it a 6 out of 10. Don't get him wrong, but maybe stories about aliens are not really for him. Not his cup of tea. Okay, and it tells you where to watch it. We found it on Tubi, and he suggests leave a comment on that particular website. And it's about the author, Ashley Mills. Okay, it's actually a female who writes entertainment pieces on movies, television shows and popular culture. So as we were saying earlier, you couldn't play the video, so the idea of find the transcript, the word by words in this particular movie, and we found it, so we're going to have a look at that. But Majestic, the implication of a secret space program. This is what they said on that movie. We'll leave the link to the movie so you can watch it in your own time. It's about 2 or 3 hours long, but very, very interesting. 2 hours and 13 minutes long. This is the movie transcript. Epigraph. The gateway, this is what you see in the beginning, as we read to you. The gateway from intelligent energy to intelligent infinity opens regardless of circumstance on the striking of the hour. Law of one. Freedom is a heavy load and a great strange burden for the spirit to undertake. It is not easy. It is not a gift given, but a choice made. And the choice may be a hard one. The road goes upward towards the light, but the laden traveller may never reach the end of it. Man approaches the unattainable truth through a succession of errors. Affliction comes to us, not to make us sad but sober, not to make us sorry but wise. You will be required to do wrong no matter where you go. It is the basic condition of life to be required to violate your own identity. At some point, every creature which lives must do so. It is the ultimate shadow, the defeat of creation. This is the curse at work, the curse that feeds on all life, everywhere in the universe. The gravest error a thinking person can make is to believe that one particular version of history is absolute fact. History is recorded by a series of observers, none of whom were impartial. It is change, continuing change, inevitable change that is the dominant factor in society today. And that's why, when we came across that quote, history is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon, we had to find out who actually said it. And it wasn't Napoleon, it was some other Frenchman before him, lived centuries before him. It was just misattributed to Napoleon, apparently. And these people on a certain forum translated from the French and explained what was actually said. No sensible decision can be made any longer without taking into account not only the world as it is, but the world as it will be. The saddest aspect of life right now is that science gathers knowledge faster than society gathers wisdom. Each generation imagines itself to be more intelligent than the one what went before it, and wiser than the one that came after it. Man is the unnatural animal, the rebel child of nature, and more does he turn himself against the harsh and fitful hand that reared him. It doesn't matter what you do, so long as you change something from the way it was before you touched it, into something that's like you after you take your hands away. The very concept of truth is fading out of this world, and lies will pass into history. Solitude and isolation are painful things, and beyond human endurance. For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love. Okay, here's the Trinity. Robert Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb. A few people laughed, a few people cried, most people were silent. And this writer, Robert Oppenheimer, states here he remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The atomic clock begins. David Wilcock, when the Trinity nuclear test was done and Robert Oppenheimer said, "We have done this before," he was speaking from the informed perspective. In the ancient Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita, there is a reference to a bolt of iron charged with the light of 1,000 suns. It describes radiation sickness. It describes elephants screaming and dying. It describes the shadows that are left on the ground after the blast goes off, all things that we're now familiar with in this nuclear age. The same culture that described what appeared to be the use of a modern nuclear weapon also was describing things like anti-gravity craft that flew through the air with no sound, called vimanas. This craft could pass right through a mountain, and they also use some sort of particle beam weapons. You have human-looking beings that are larger than the rest of us and have blue skin, like Krishna, and they also have extraordinary abilities. And in addition to that, you have weird reptilian beings called Rakshasas, who are also code-named snakes. And these beings clearly appear to be of a reptilian nature. This even goes to the point that you still, to this day, have temples in India in which there are people called Nagas who have a human-like top, but then from the waist down they literally have a snake's body. All of this stuff takes on a much different investigative hue once we look at the fact that the actual record of what we now know a nuclear bomb looks and acts like is dutifully recorded in these Hindu scriptures. So Oppenheimer was aware that this weapon unleashed a fury unlike everything we'd ever seen before. Prior to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the scientists were the rock stars. Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, Marconi, Tesla. These were the rock stars. These were the people who made our lives so exciting that we went from essentially a primitive situation where in order to have food preserved we have to have an icebox where literally pieces of ice are covered with sawdust, to now we have electric refrigerators, we have electric lights so we can read at night, we have the thoughts being beamed wirelessly by radio, and then eventually even pictures through television. This was so exciting. People could travel, transcontinental railroad, all these things were coming out that had never happened before. The private automobile without the need for horses, and then all of a sudden the nuclear explosion shows that technology hit a screaming brick wall. We could not trust any longer that our toys would be the instruments of our enlightenment. They could actually be the instruments of our destruction. Corey Good states, exploding these nuclear weapons ended up basically acting as beacons to a number of ET races in our general area. The primary energy pulse that occurs in one of these explosions sends an energy that feeds back through the fabric of space-time, and so forth. And Wilcock makes a comment on Oppenheimer's key quotes, which revealed that he did not know what the effect of the detonation of the nuclear bomb would be. When they conducted the Trinity test, they were unaware as to whether or not this explosion would create a chain reaction that would actually destroy the whole Earth. And yet, they proceeded forward because they believed that this weapon was the only way they could end World War II, and thus the ends justified the means. Jordan Sather, with how potent and how powerful these technologies can be, we can never expect to be able to handle them if we operate them from a low consciousness. When you raise your individual consciousness, when you actually make the effort to become more aware of an individual, that has a mirrored effect to society. It's the law of correspondence, as above, so below, and so forth. So when you become more conscious of an individual, that makes society itself raise in consciousness. And when each one of us, every single one of us, begins making ourselves more aware, society itself is going to become more aware. And in Wilcock talks, Captain Robert Salas, congressional testimony, and he says, first I'd like to briefly describe the incident that I experienced in March 1967. At the time he was a first lieutenant US Air Force stationed at Majestic Air Force Base, Montana. He was trained and assigned duties as a missile launch officer for the Minuteman I intercontinental ballistic missile. They had operational control over 10 Minuteman nuclear missiles. On the evening of March 24th, 1967, while his commander was on a scheduled rest break, he received the first of two phone calls. The first call was to report unidentified lighted objects flying above the facility. Dan Willis. Well, they were hovering above the nuclear silos, and what was happening was they didn't attack the nuclear silos. All they did was shut down, like Captain Robert Salas had, like 8 nuclear-tipped ICBMs, and they all got shut down in rapid succession, and so forth. And Wilcock talks. Then NBC News report. The Idaho National Guard has a huge mystery on its hands, and that is our top story today, etc. And Wilcox, Dwight David Eisenhower, Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably a recording of what he actually said, film of what he said, footage. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, good evening, my fellow Americans. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defence with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. The military and industrial complex, Laura Eisenhower. So when I really think about the speech from Dwight David Eisenhower, his farewell speech about the military industrial complex, it brings up a lot of stuff for me, or her. She was recruited to go off planet in 2006. It seems to be related to the alternative 3 scenario that relates to creating colonies of planet and so forth. And a person called Willis talks about the where it all started back in 1955 for the Eisenhower administration that was forced into a treaty, somewhat of a surrender with a Nazi faction that had been operating. One of the witnesses that was Brigadier General Stephen Lovkin, who was an Eisenhower staff who was aware that he'd lost control to the corporations, big business, and that it would not be in the best hands. And so once this treaty was signed, Nelson Rockefeller restructured the whole CIA MJ-12 operations and so forth. And then here's Jordan Sather. One of the ways that Nazis obtained the advanced technology before World War II was through the use of a channeler called Maria Orsic. Maria Orsic was channeling telepathic messages from extraterrestrials. They were offering her plans and schematics to actually create anti-gravity craft. Maria Orsic channeled this information for the occult Real Society in Germany. This information was later used by the German secret societies to build out many of their crafts. Because they were focused more on the qualitative superiority rather than quantitative, they were more focused on having more advanced technology rather than more tanks and boots on the ground. They were losing the ground war in Europe, but they were obtaining the more advanced technology, and to save that technology they took it down to Antarctica pre and during World War II. He's good. In the late 1930s, the Nazis had an expeditionary group go down to Antarctica, and they found some very interesting things. They found a region under the ice that was created by geothermal heat from volcanoes, and there'd be 3 miles of ice, and a few thousand feet above ground level would have been melted by the geothermal heat, and the rest of the ice acts as an insulator, causing it sort of like an igloo effect, and the dome would grow from the heat, the geothermal heat, and it would melt and run into the ice. And that was some of what was lubricating the ice and causing it to move. But underneath these areas, they were finding perfect areas to build submarine bases. So not only did the Nazis build out submarine bases, as they developed more and more of their space program, they developed out a massive spaceport. After these spaceports were developed, the Nazis had handed over to basically the Americans. The Americans began to develop more and more research and development bases in Antarctica. In the late 1950s, a treaty was signed that stated that Antarctica was not only to be used for peaceful research, while we were basically arriving and digging giant holes under the ice in various areas and building out these giant complexes, much like I think it was called Project Iceworm back in the 1960s, where, like in Greenland, the United States Army Corps engineers were building out an ICBM base hidden under the ice, and it was very sophisticated, and he was told that they were very similar, what they were built and how they were built, to the buildings that were built in this program, and so forth. And Wilcox talks again about that, and William Tompkins gives his 50 cents worth, his information. They're good. The reptilians really came into control and started to be able to manipulate what was going on the face of the planet about 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. It is true that they have different masking technologies to be able to be in a room and look like a human, but usually they're in underground bases in various places on the globe, as well as in a huge area in Antarctica. The southeast region has a large number of underground caverns that are kept extremely warm, too warm for humans, by geothermal heat. Is perfect place for all of these colonies that the reptilians have. They're basically cities, huge cities with millions of them. Tompkins So the Secretary of Navy selects Rico Botta, etc., etc. He's not even American. And it goes on like that. So this is briefly what's said in that movie. Okay? Word for word, basically. Secret societies. George Bush interviewed. And there's a guy that jumped up in a meeting and said something along the lines of, "Oh, so you were in Skull and Bones, etc., etc." And then he was arrested. And he says, "What the hell are you arresting me for? I only asked a question," that sort of thing. And these couple of these security guards or cops came in and tried to drag him out. "What the hell are you arresting me for? I only asked a question," sort of thing. Yeah, and might be further on here. Oh, there's Mike Ruppert. This is really interesting. He's interviewing. He says, "I'll tell you, Director Deutsch, as a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, that the agency has dealt through this country for a long. Has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long. Director Deutsch, I'll refer you to these three specific agency operations known as Amadeus, Pegasus, and Watchtower. I have Watchtower documents heavily redacted by the agency. I was personally exposed to CIA operations and recruited by CIA personnel who attempted to recruit me in the late 1970s to become involved in protecting agency drug operations in this country. For the record, my name is Mike Ruppert, R-U-P-P-E-R-T. I did bring this information out 18 years ago and I got shot at and forced out of LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department, because of it. He's been on the record for 18 years non-stop and he'll be happy to give Congressman anything that he had." Yeah. And good, a lot of these elite are running a lot of financial scams, drug programs to raise money, these secret programs that they have going on, and they take full advantage of this access. And then they probably don't age anymore. You know, the 1%er don't even know who they are, don't even know what they look like, you don't even know their name. They can go down and be at a 7-Eleven and you wouldn't even know that it was them. So they cannot age and you wouldn't know it. Never get sick. Offsprings will be born and they'll be super smart, super strong. Just the quality of life improved in every direction. And he was sure the 1%ers are enjoying that while the rest of us are dying with diseases and malformities and stuff. They walk around, you know, body beautiful. So that's just a medical area. Then think about the other things, transportation of the vehicles, they travel around, home security, all that stuff. Just, you know, it'd be like someone in modern suburbia looking at a man in a cave. We're the men in the cave. All of us are the men in the cave compared to them. Good. What every often occurs is that an elite will get to a very old ripe age, or they will and die, or they will die in some sort of accident. Privately they are taken, and depending on their level, they either age regressed or they have their consciousness basically downloaded into a clone that is an exact duplicate of them. They then disappear from the public eye forever and go into these programs or go into retirement. This is something that pops up a lot in the programs, and everyone that has served deeply knows that the elite have access and many of them never really die. Sather, what the deep state of the cable or the New World Order is a small group of very powerful but very psychopathic individuals that have acquired a lot of money, a lot of technology and a lot of information over the course of centuries. And there's lots more information here about secret societies. Sather, the reason that these elite dark occult societies sacrifice and traffic children goes right back to the Jews and Moloch, by the looks of it. First and foremost is the energy associated with it that's released from those children, because they're not programmed. And it gives more information here. The secret societies are really more of a front organisation that they use to recruit people, and they will gradually, over time, find out exactly how ruthless and bloodthirsty you are as a member, right? It is only as you go farther and farther into this, or further and further into this, you become embedded with your brothers, with brotherhood, and that brotherhood, you become more and more involved. You get deeper and deeper in, and then they start hitting you with the really heavy stuff, until we face as a society that these things are actually happening, and that there is a centralised control group that is responsible for this, we will be doomed for these people to continue to exert their control over us. If we don't learn how to respect each other, then we're never going to make any progress. We need to learn from the Me Too movement. Those are the ones who expose Harvey Weinstein, the Epstein guy, Bill Cosby, all those sort of people. What's that porno guy? Silver, is it? Ron Silver or something? Okay. You have to learn from the Me Too movement and understand that there is corruption, there is sexual abuse, rape, there is pedophilia, there is child trafficking, there is human sacrifice, there is cannibalism, and all of these things are happening because there is a hidden elite that actually uses these behaviours as part of their religious sacrament. It actually doesn't matter whether you believe that these people exist or not. The bottom line is that they are actually advertising themselves constantly. They do it in movies. There's a whole set of symbols that you can look for in movies that show their influence. They do it in video games, they do it in television shows, they do it in music videos like crazy. They do it in awards, at ceremonies, and it's always in your face. Now is the time for us to get our heads out of the sand, stop being ostriches, okay? And understand that even if these things do seem unthinkable to us, there are people who are actively practicing this today, this very day. The evidence is voluminous. There's a hell of a lot of evidence. And really what it boils down to is that people don't want to look at evidence because it's so upsetting, so they turn the other way, ignore it, pretend it's not real, pretend it's not there. It's always in their face. And Ronald Reagan's speech, and then the programs, Solar Warden, etc. And there's heaps and heaps of more information, the transcript of the actual movie. Debt slave system. Suppressed technology. You don't know about. The US has technology that's like 40 or so years ahead. You wouldn't believe it. What's this? Okay, it's going on QAnon, is it? QAnon? Where should we start from? As the QAnon briefings recently stated, these indictments are going to be like Watergate times 1,000. They've never seen anything like this in the history of the world. Some of the most recent QAnon, hopefully that's how you say it, QAnon briefings which our insiders have told us is coming from the Alliance has said that there are many figures in the controlled mainstream media who are in these indictments as well. So Harvey Weinstein is just the beginning. Remember the Me Too movement busted his butt, okay? He's in jail, all that sort of stuff. And isn't it interesting that when Harvey Weinstein was finally arrested, in his hand he had the biography of Eli Kazan, who was a guy in early Hollywood history who was brought in during the McCarthy investigations and sang like a songbird and ratted out many other people in Hollywood. And Weinstein has now said he is doing the same thing, and that everybody in Hollywood was doing the same stuff that he was doing. So he was upset about why he got singled out. So once these indictments become unsealed, this will be the fulfillment of the mass arrest scenario that the author has been leaking on his website since 2009. The only two indictments that we've had unsealed so far involve the cult group NXIVM and XIVM. The founder, Keith Raniere, and one of his understudies, the actress Alison Mack, remember her from, I think it was the Superman program? She was quite famous, and she went into a cult, a satanic cult, recruited young females into that. Okay, and then she got busted. These are for child trafficking. These are the only two unsealed court records so far, and the unsealed indictments actually labelled child sex trafficking on them. And next to him is found to be a hotbed of cult activity, of ritual abuse, and of child sex abuse even. So if these are the only two records that have been unsealed so far, and they are taking down names of this caliber with charges of this caliber, we can only imagine what the rest of these unsealed indictments are going to show us, and so forth. Okay, more information there. And how Thomas Edison was a front man, and he was out to destroy, he was a front man to destroy Tesla and destroy all his inventions, all his findings, because the efforts to destroy his patents came from national government, not just Edison and his private conglomerate that had billions of dollars even at that time. And the reason for that is why? Because his effort to repress free energy was coming from the elite powers and control, the ones that sit on top of everything, and tell everybody we've got to stop this. And what we're seeing today, of course, is that free energy is like a dam that's sprouting leaks and it's getting ready to burst forward, because it is coming. It's coming really soon, because it's been out there for so long, and this person thinks they're getting to the point where it's going to come forward. And it's going to come forward maybe from several sources at the same time, because the pressure has built up so much from so many different sources. So he thinks, or he thought, that we're going to get it very soon. Dr. Bob Wood, a movement begins. And then there's this guy, David Wilcox. I think he passed. Actually died. He's been dead for a while now. And he claims he had dreams about UFOs, all this sort of stuff. Very straight faced guy. No indication that he's lying there. You know, if you're into the old NLP knowledge, etc., etc., body language, you know, gives them away, all that sort of stuff. Goes on about humanoids, reptilians, and so forth. It's very, very interesting. According to him, it's all true. It's research. He's done the research and all sorts of stuff. Okay, this is from the Cosmic Secret, where many of them were actually starting it. Also available on Tubi. Cosmic Secret movie transcript, sequel to Above Majestic. There's a link there. Produced by David Wilcox with a starring role by Corey Good, who's mentioned in that book, who says some things in that book. Supposedly what God has said in the scriptures. Okay, this is a transcript of that second, or that sequel to this is the Cosmic Secret. Okay. Secret to the Majestic. Okay, so we hope you find that really interesting, and we suggest go and watch this particular movie. We will leave the link to it at the end of this video. If you like this video, you're impressed that we did something really different, subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below in the comment section underneath the video, and then go share this with all your family, friends and others, that there is a possibility that this either we're created by aliens, an alien conglomerate, etc., etc., as Zachariah Sitchin, Van Doniken, Maura Biglino, etc. claim, or it's a big hoax, and so forth. It's all demonic, of the devil, etc. But that's where you come in and you have to do your personal research to determine the established facts, that the evidence proves itself evident, that these claimants are irrefutable, their writings and their claims are infallible, etc. Once all of these are gained, it's very hard to deny it. You can deny it, but you can't really deny it if it's like established fact. The evidence has proven itself evident. These authors or these writers are proven irrefutable, infallible, and their writings are proven irrefutable, infallible. Therefore, they're deemed the same, right? But you can debunk it. People can debunk it because they can, and they will. Okay, so again, subscribe to our channel if you like this. Give us a like. Add your comments below, and we'll get back to you on those as soon as we can. And you go share it with everybody else you know around you. They need to know.